So today's video will run through as many tips as possible that I can fit in this short video around refurbs, what not to do, what to do, when you're working with builders, some of the tips around that, and finally the costs involved to help you not lose money when you're doing your own renovations. Now, before we run into the costs of a basic renovation, here are some tips that you need to factor in. I'm going to give you 4 quick tips straight off the bat, because working with tradesmen, it's always been an experience for the last 10 years that I've been doing this. So number 1, are you going to be using a fixed price contract, or are you going by time and materials? Essentially, time and materials means you would be paying them by their day rates or how much they work. I personally prefer fixed price because that way I can at least budget it beforehand. I know exactly what I'm getting myself into and I don't have to worry about if they're working hard or quick enough. The second is, will you be using different trades or just one in-house team? The benefits of using different trades at different times could actually save you money, my friends, but it actually requires a bit more project management experience and more moving parts. You may, for example, struggle with getting the right person in at the right time when they're needed, and this could, of course, cause your project to be delayed and, of course, the cost to increase. However, if you use an in-house team, that could essentially save you some cash in terms of the duration, but there might be a premium attached to that. Number 3, get yourself a contract, sign it, and the most important part of this, my friends, is to be as detailed as you possibly can and write down everything that you expect. All your expectations need to be within that. Don't leave nothing to interpretation. Number 4, consider getting yourself a PM. Now, a lot of build teams have their own PMs or an experienced worker, possibly the carpenter on that project, who will be around for the majority of the project, that's able to handle the day-to-day duties. Expect to pay, if you are doing things separately, maybe around 10 to 15% of the final budget of a PM. You can also do it yourself, my friends. So with that said and done, let's look at renovating a typical 3-bedroom terraced house. Now, you're going to be wanting to have some sort of schedule of work so you can at least manage or monitor the time, the task, and of course the details of the project. This will then give you an idea of the flow of the project essentially. So what we're going to do is run through some key parts of this along with some costs. So the first main phase is the strip out. So this could be, removing stuff like your chimney breasts, your fireplaces, your frames, architraves, skirtings, kitchens, bathrooms, old crappy carpets, etc. You just want to get rid of the stuff that you don't want in that house for when it's finished. Now, of course, this could obviously range depending on the location. I've seen some as much as £2,000, but here I would say allocate yourself around £1,500. And remember, you're paying for obviously the laborers for a skip, so you're not going to have skilled workers generally doing this. The skip itself, and of course a potential permit for that skip if you need it on the road. So prepare yourselves a week or so in advance, because you would need to speak to the council about getting that done. Then of course we will do the first fix, because most old run down projects, or the ones that you want to bring back to life, most likely you're going to want to bring the electrics back to standard. Now, occasionally you can just replace or update the consumer unit, but let's imagine that you're doing a full rewire on this 3-bedroom house, for example. Now, I've previously done this as cheap as around £2,500, but the costs of materials and labor are increasing literally as we speak. So you could be looking at around £3,500 to £4,000. So just have that in mind for your budget. Now, if it's like a 1-bedroom flat or something, you could get it as cheap as potentially £2,000, but make sure your electrics are safe. Now, just a couple of things here. Sometimes people tend to have the wiring on the outside, and one way to mitigate this is obviously by using trunking to cover this. Personally, I would avoid that if you can. I think it's better to have the wires in the walls. It just looks cleaner, so definitely try and do that. Then we have central heating. So after your electrics, this is one of the most expensive parts of the renovation too. This is where you get your pipes, your boilers, your rads, etc., all supplied and fitted. Now, just like the rewire, it's going to cost you a similar amount, at least from my experience. So account for around £3,000 to £3,500, depending of course on how many rads you want and the actual boiler itself. Now, if you buy something and it's got a new boiler and your plumber maybe thinks the pipes are fine, maybe you could do a power flush, although it's not always beneficial, but it usually works if there's some sort of bad circulation around your pipes. This could cost you around £400. So just have that in mind. If everything else, if you don't want to touch it, and of course there's no need to. Next up, we have plastering, and you're going to want to account some money for plastering. Now, I've seen some plasterers charge a hell of a lot for this. Obviously, it's a skilled trade, and the cost could vary, of course, depending if you got them on a day rate or a fixed price. Using this 3-bedroom terraced house for an example, I've done this previously for around £2,750 to around £3,000. And if you're looking at day rates, they can usually charge around £20 per hour or around £150 to £200 a day. And that should be inclusive of materials. But as everything costs a lot more, let's assume on a 3-bedroom terraced house, try and put an allocation of around £4,000. I know that's a lot of money, but let's be safe than sorry. If you can get it cheaper, then fantastic. Next up, we have carpentry and joinery. Now, these guys are responsible for installation of wooden structures, fittings, redesigning, etc. Now, as a basic example, if you're changing the architraves, skirting boards, the doors, and not reconfiguring the stairs or anything crazy like that, expect to pay less than obviously the plastering. £2,000 to £2,500 is what I would allocate for that. Next up, we have a kitchen. Now, this is my favorite place in the house. It may be yours. Again, it depends on your end goal here. If you're flipping in a high-end area and you're looking for a top finish, you could be spending tens of thousands of pounds. You know, your islands, your marble worktops, etc. But if we are thinking of this 3-bedroom house, just sticking with that example, maybe you're renting it out, for example, expect to spend anywhere up to around £5,000. You could get it cheaper though. And it could be reduced if you choose different brands or materials that aren't as expensive, if there's less units in the overall kitchen. Now, previously I did use LMPG to get magnet discount kitchens, but I found trade prices at Howdens just as effective. And I also found that the workmen usually prefer Howden kitchens too. Some little tips as well. Thicker worktops, changing the bog standard handles on the carcasses and drawers can make it look a little bit more expensive than it actually is. Bathrooms. Now, like a kitchen, you can spend as much as you want. If you want gold-plated toilet seats, then it's going to cost you a lot. But supply and fit and standard shower, sink, toilet, splashback tiles, and maybe some mirrors, etc., just to spruce up the place, which are cheap, this could set you back anywhere around the £3,000 mark. Some tips I found with rented homes is to pay that little bit extra if you're using tiles to go from floor to ceiling. It'll cost a little more in terms of the material and labor, but it just looks better and causes a lot less mess in the long run. You can also use cladding type of materials, my friends, if you want to bring down those costs a little bit and maybe save yourselves £400 to £500. Carpets and flooring. Now, generally speaking, tiles in the kitchen and bathroom is a good look, but you could opt for vinyl flooring if you want to bring those costs down a little bit. And carpets around the house or laminate. Laminate works as well, but it could go either way in terms of the price. Sometimes, you know, you can get it for around the same price. Sometimes it can be a lot more. Now, of course, depending on what you choose, expect to pay anywhere around £2,500 to £3,000. You can get thicker underlays or more durable carpets if it's for a buy-to-let, for example. But if you want to get a little bougie and you want your Cloud9 underlays, it's going to cost you a little bit more. Painting and decorating. Now, this, in my experience, depending of course on the types of paint, etc. you're going for, shouldn't cost more than £2,500. If you're keeping things relatively neutral in terms of the colors and painting the woodwork and walls and ceiling. So expect that for the budget. Staging. Nowadays, we have a lot of CGI services for staging when, if you're advertising it, maybe on places like Zoopla or Rightmove, you can get these done to show people what a potential family home could look like. Now, I've seen these done for around £300 to £500. An alternate thing you could do, especially if you're looking to flip the property and there's a high price at the end with some profit, is to stage it with actually some lease furniture. So forget the CGIs, just actually get some furniture in there. But then it's all about your photography. Make sure you get a good photographer in after that. However, if it's a rental, and this is what I've done because I'm just conscious people want to move in and add their own furniture and I don't want to spend crazy amounts on staging, is I've just put in some large mirrors to make those rooms look a little bit bigger and not so bare. I've also added in some lighting in the houses and a few things like doormats, rugs maybe, and accessories dotted around the house that just gives some idea of, you know, what these room types could be like. Now, I wouldn't spend thousands on this unless of course you're making a huge amount of money. So with that, my friends, that's a wrap. I hope it's helped. And as always, I look forward to seeing you next time.